I called this up, I didn't answer the phone.
I spoke to him tonight.
You had the phone? What did he say?
He's just going to go into rehab for about
2 weeks, I know. Russ,
He's
he's a
okay,
Russ.
he recovered from his stroke.
Okay, good.
So the match is just for the match is only for here.
Yeah. I didn't tell you no. I know we went. See him.
I'm obviously fine. Rebbe, when it came to Yud Shvat, first year, wrote a letter, and he referred to Yud Shvat as the Yom HaGodel VeHaKodesh. Don't find many days being called Yom HaGodel VeHaKodesh. Yom HaKodesh usually is an expression that's used for Yom Kippur. Even called Yom Kippur the Heilig HaTov, Yom HaKodesh. Here the Rebbe says it's Yom HaGodel VeHaKodesh. The day itself is a Yom HaGodel VeHaKodesh. I got into Gimmel Tammuz with all what Gimmel Tammuz represents. We grew up in Gimmel Tammuz in a completely different way. Gimmel Tammuz, the way we grew up is what the Rebbe said that Gimmel Tammuz really is a greater Yom Tov than your base Tammuz. The Rebbe basically asked the question, why is it that the base Tammuz is made into such a big Yom Tov and Gimmel Tammuz is just secondary? Truthfully, Gimmel Tammuz is more reason to celebrate than your base Tammuz, because this was basically the day in which, I'm talking in English, this self-explanatory. The Gimmel Tammuz is the day in which the Rebbe came out of prison. And when we know, especially now that we know the history, any day that the Rebbe was in prison was a matter of sakonas nefoshes mamish. There's a sikha, look at the sikha, the Rebbe, a mugidik sikha, the Rebbe asks a question in halacha. We know that on Thursday, the Chodesh Tammuz, they came into the Frierdiker Rebbe and they told him that he's coming out of prison, he's going to travel tomorrow to Kostroma. They asked him where he wants, how he wants to go. He said he wants to go to first class, if he has money, so forth and so on. But then the Rebbe asked one question: when is he going to arrive in Kostroma? And they told him that he's going to come there on Shabbos. Obviously, they said it especially for that way. And the Rebbe said it on Shabbos, he's not going to go. He's not going to go. No way to come on Shabbos. And eventually, they were asking him to keep him in prison until Sunday, that he should go on Sunday. So the Rebbe asks a very simple question. Al pi halacha, there is no question that he should have traveled. They gave him a chance to leave prison. He should have traveled. There is no question about it. The Rebbe even asked if he was allowed. How did he have the right to put himself in a matzav of sakonas nefoshes mamish to stay in prison longer? Because with the way that they were handling at that time, you never knew what's going to happen with the next week. You could change their mind at any given time. The Rebbe explains that this was a matter of Kiddush Hashem, and this is why it was allowed. But the Rebbe is addressing on why he was allowed to stay in prison. So, coming out of prison is mamesh mi moves l'chaim, a question from sakonas moves to chaim. The base Tammuz is already, yes, it's Golis is a terrible, terrible, terrible thing. But it's still not a question of life and death. And the Rebbe makes the whole thing is only Yud Tammuz with very little on Gimmel Tammuz. And the Rebbe explains it in a very, very special way that tells us all. So to the Frierdiker Rebbe, being told that he's coming out of prison and going to Golus was not a Geula. for him to go to goats, but he's not going to be able to function in a free way to be able to do what he wants, what he's meant to do. To him, it was not a geula. He saw no reason to celebrate. But Chassidim say the Rebbe should be celebrating Gimmel Tammuz more than Yiddish Tammuz. And they say, they say that Gimmel Tammuz that year, there were two people that were really celebrating. The Rebbe and Zalman Beishe, B'Achosim, Zalman Beishe, these way of they really, really celebrated Gimmel Tammuz. Because to them, this was the feeling that Gimmel Tammuz, and this is how we grew up. With Gedrukte Siches explaining that Tammuz was always the month of Chug, and today is the month of Geula. The Torah change. We're not taking out the Siches from the Siches, and we're not changing anything. How do we explain it? Historisch Hashem Elokeinu. And eventually we'll understand it. Eventually, hopefully, very, 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 very soon. But Gimmel Tammuz is a day of unbelievable greatness. And when it comes to what happened on Gimmel Tammuz, the Rebbe says that this is Yom HaGodel VaHaKodesh. What is special about Yom Kippur? That Yom Kippur is Itzumei Shel Yom Mechaper. Yes, you have to do something, but Itzumei Shel Yom Mechaper. Our Eid is different on Yom Kippur. Gimmel Tammuz is our Eid different. Achosid is different than Gimmel Tammuz. Anybody, because Gimmel Tammuz is the day in which we are connected to the Rebbe in a different way. So I've never heard it before, but today I saw it. Somebody Farbrengen it fast yesterday in Gemang Yashuvitz. So it's going around. What is going on? Very, very interesting. It tells a story. It was in Tovshin Lamed Zayin. His brother was getting married, and they wrote to the Rebbe several dates that were being discussed for the Chassan. One of the dates was Gimmel Tammuz. And the Rebbe circled Gimmel Tammuz, that this should be the day of the Chassanah. And he said, Yoim Sheli, my day. That was Tovshin Lamed Zayin. The Rebbe circled Gimmel Tammuz and said, Yoim Sheli. This is something very, very interesting. Just, somebody said it right now. Do we understand it? A lot of things that we don't understand. But what is Gimmel Tammuz? What is Gimmel Tammuz? The day on Gimmel Tammuz is still extending. Israel in who the Mekatche is money. Eden have declared to be Mekadesh Zman. And for that, we learn in Kiddush HaChedesh. We say, Bezdin has the Kiyach to be Mekadesh Zman. That's why we say Mekadesh Israel V'Azmanim. We don't say Mekadesh Shabbos. Mekadesh Shabbos is Shabbos Mekadesh B'Kaimo. Shabbos and Mekadesh Israel V'Azmanim, he is Mekadesh Israel, and Israel, he knew Mekadesh Zman. Bezdin is Mekadesh Zman. Bezdin has the Kiyach to be Mekadesh Zman. Nobody has been Mekadesh Zmanim like the Rebbe. That's one of the things. We're talking about what the Rebbe has brought in, something that we could point out to something the Rebbe was Mekadesh and the Zmanim. It started with Hayom Yom. The first sefer that the Rebbe wrote was Hayom Yom. Rabbi Chadokov used always to chazar that when Hayom Yom, he said, when he brought the Hayom Yom to the Frierdiker Rebbe, Hayom Yom, der Tog is a Tog. Every day becomes a day. When you look at Hayom Yom, every day becomes a day. To the Rebbe, every day became a day. Who, like the Rebbe, would every single time when he said by Farbrengen, explain the connection of the Parshas HaShavua to this day. The fact that this came out on this Parsha, in this day of the month, and then the Kviyas is in this day of the month, what it means, in every single way. Connecting it in a way that nobody did that before. Now, Yom Yom brings that the Alter Rebbe says mit der Leben mit der Zeit. And Chassidim did not know how to figure this out. What does it mean to live with the times, to love with the Zeit? Until they had the Ma'avil, Alter Rebbe's brother, asked him, and he says to live with the Paksha of the week. So the Rebbe once addressed it. He said, what was so difficult to figure out? What's so difficult? Nobody could figure it out. Even the Ma'avil couldn't figure it out. They had to ask the Alter Rebbe himself. What was there that was so out of this world? Never explained. The fact that we have to live in the Parshas HaShavua, that today in Tov Shin Pei Gimmel we live with the Parshas Hamishi of Parshas Korach, and last year Hamishi of Parshas Korach was as relevant then as this Hamishi Parshas Korach is relevant today. And every single year it is relevant. Nobody could figure that there is such a connection. Nobody could imagine that this is the connection, how much the connection is between Eden and Torah, that the Parshas Shavua is so relevant and relevant today in the same way as it was relevant last year and every single year of all the years. But that it was beyond their imagination. And this is what the Alter Rebbe told us. And the Rebbe showed this to us. And make sure that we know every single time what we learn from the fact that it's on this day, that's on this day of the week, everything. And the Rebbe Mekadosh is mine. Simply, how many Yom Pagros, when the Rebbe was with us in Yaguf Gashmi, how many Yom Pagros would have gone without really celebration if the Rebbe did not make a Farbrengen and a Mitna Mittwoch, a Yom Pagros became a Yom Pagros. The Rebbe was like a mashpia to us, holding us by the hand and doing things that mashpiyim should have been Farbrengen on every single day like this. Mashpiyim did not do it enough, or Yungelai didn't get enough with Mashpiyim, so the Rebbe made sure that he would Farbrengen, and that's why Chassidim came. So the Katshin Hulizmanim, Ban Rebbe, we see in a Megandike way, and he made sure that we'll know every single time. And every single time the Rebbe would again point to what we have to learn on this day. So this is what Gimmel Tammuz is all about. And the Rebbe also made sure that we know that and it extends to the night after. And if this is not enough, so the Rebbe tells us that it extends until Shabbos, because Shabbos you could be mercy, but you could be mashli. And this is how the Rebbe has brought in and told us. He was mamshich every Yom Tov, every Yom Pagre. The Rebbe was Mekadesh the days after until Shabbos and so forth. Already Yud Shvat, the Rebbe says that whatever has not been achieved on Yud Shvat should be done in the next days after that, and especially the Shabbos after. The Rebbe gives this keiches. When it comes to Tishrei, we have the white pareches. People take it away usually the day after was the. Some people kept it until Shabbos Bereshis. The Rebbe made sure that it's going to stay there until Zayin Cheshvan. What does that mean? The Rebbe was Mamshech Tishrei until Zayin Cheshvan. Only a Rebbe could have. And this is the keiches that the Rebbe is giving us the keiches, and we have to realize that, we have to know that, because we have to have an appreciation of what the Rebbe is giving us. And when it comes to such a day, comes a day like Gimmel Tammuz, we have to concentrate on what it is that the Rebbe is giving us, and what it is that the Rebbe wants of us. And when he wants of us something, he gives us the keiches. When it comes to the heroes of what to do in the Menhagim of Yud Shvat, the Rebbe says to sit down with the Bnei Bayis and explain what the Rebbe has achieved, what the keiches of the Rebbe has in this world. The Rebbe has achieved. So this is what the Rebbe tells us we have to do. And why do we have to do that? Because we have to know what we have. We have to know what we have in order not to waste and not to utilize. Another thing that we saw by the Rebbe, talking about it, and I said, we have to point out to some things. Another thing that we saw by the Rebbe is, the Rebbe never was satisfied with people's achievements. Why? Because it says you could do more. There is a many Sikha that we just learned a couple of weeks ago. The Rebbe asked this question. The Nesim brought a gift to the Mizbeach. The Chanukah Mizbeach. They brought the Sheish Agrisov Ushnei Mosar Boker. Why were they first to bring? Because they had learned a very, very, very big lesson. They meant well. They said that they're not going to bring any Dodova to the Mishkan because if there's going to be anything missing, they will complete it. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful intentions. But it was a big mistake. What was the mistake? So the Rebbe also once said that they misjudged it. This was the mistake. That they misjudged it. They thought that there is not going to be enough. And in fact, this was Bahasa. It was the one time in the recorded history that a person made an appeal and said, I have enough. This is Moshe Rabbeinu said, yeah. But basically, they came and they learned the lesson, so they're making sure that they are here first. So if they're here first, why are they doing something what looks like misers? You have to have the Mishkan carried, and the Gemara is trying to figure out how exactly they did it, and exactly the measurements, how the Agolis were. We learned how why the Rishus Harabim has to be. The Levim were running there and standing and making sure that if there is any shifting, they would have to straighten it out. Why couldn't they afford another couple of Agolis? And the point that the Rebbe makes, I'm not going to go into the all of this, that there is as far as the Kabbalah and so on. The Rebbe says that there is one thing that we learn from here. The Eibachter did not create anything for nothing. If the Agolis and the Shnei Mosar Boker have the ability to carry the 6 Agolis and Shnei Mosar Boker are enough, yes, sure. Have to put in tremendous effort, but you could do it. So if you're going to have more Agolis, it means that they didn't use their whole power. That cannot work. And the Rebbe went to it. I remember the Farbrengen. How the Rebbe said it. This is when we're talking about utilizing the Keiches of Balachai. We're talking about a Eid. So if a Eid has utilized 23 hours and 59 minutes, and he has let 1 minute go to waste, that's not the way that the Eibachter has created. This is what the Rebbe said. Getan auszuding 23 schon mit 59 Minuten. Aber es ist noch 1 Minute. It's that a minute that the Eibachter did not create for us. And this is what the Rebbe is asking of us, to constantly utilize our keiches. But in order to utilize our keiches, we have to know what they are. We have to know what they are. And this is something that the Rebbe was constantly hammering into it. That we are capable of much more than we are ever thinking about ourselves. And the keiches the Rebbe told us we have, and when the Rebbe says that we have, it's because he's giving it. So, the Rebbe Shtalhofen is listening to the keiches in every way. Wir doch sind Sendung Rebbe der Mathe na gut Gashmi. Fine.
What food cook the world?
We lost the Yashapua. Rebbe told us the Meshkan Maimer. The Rebbe's Indian is to bring Shechina to man. Just last week we had Chob Ches Siv. There are some Yom Tevim that come in the Eichen from Sausa Dotat. Some here with the Pagos, it's very interesting. Chob Ches Siv was something that went unnoticed for tens and tens of years. only became known, it started being celebrated in the last couple of years. A couple of Bochim decided to check out when it was, when the Rebbe came, and decided to make a big deal of it. And eventually the Rebbe took it on, and the Rebbe made it into a very special day. To the point that when it came to 50 years, the Rebbe was standing there giving out a kibbutz in which it says there what Chavches Sivan means. And what it means. The Rebbe is standing there giving out a kibbutz that explains everything about himself. And what Chavches Sivan is. What is Chavches Sivan? So the last Farbrengen of Chavches Sivan that we had from Rebbe, the Rebbe explained it very, very clearly. And it basically tells us, Pulosei Asher Peye. What happened to Chavches Sivan? Rebbe, again, every time the Rebbe looks at the date and what the date means. So what is Chavches Sivan, Koyach of Sivan? So the Rebbe explains. Sivan is known as the month of Matan Torah. Yachet L'Soy, everything is connected with 3. That's the month of Sivan. In Sivan itself, when we have 3 days in Sivan, that's already established the month of Sivan as a chazok. You have 3 times 3, that's already establishing a chazok of a chazok. So it's so much stronger. When you have 3 times 3 times 3, that is the strongest chazaka that might possibly be. It means that now you have the whole, as they call the whole potency, the whole koyach of Sivan is in the 3 times 3 times 3, and that is Chavches Sivan. The koyach of Sivan, that's why it's called the koyach of Sivan. Sivan represents Torah, and this is koyach Sivan. This is what Torah, the koyach of Sivan, the koyach of the 3rd month of Matan Torah, where the Eibishter gives the Torah. This is when the Eibishter is giving the Torah. It's very interesting. The Rebbe asked the Farbrengen Rebbe a question. He said, is there an Indian, what I heard in the name of the Alter Rebbe, that in Chassid Kador HaTachten there was no Matan Torah. There was no Matan Torah in the lower hemisphere, lower hemisphere. Which means in America there was no Matan Torah. What? The Rebbe asked by the Farbrengen Rebbe, I heard that in the name of the Alter Rebbe, that in the lower hemisphere there was no Matan Torah, which means that there was no Matan Torah in America. So the Farbrengen Rebbe writes back to the Rebbe, you heard something, but you didn't hear it in the way that it's exactly right. So let me explain it to you. And the Farbrengen Rebbe explains it to him in a very clear way. And he brings what the Alter Rebbe says, and what the Tzemach Tzedek says. I'll just give the very point that the Farbrengen Rebbe is saying. When the Eibishter gave the Torah was given in the whole universe. Everything. The Torah was given alone. But after the Torah was given, Eden took the Torah and they used the Torah to bring godliness into the world. Eden were basically concentrated in the upper hemisphere. So anything of Torah mitzvahs, any impact of Torah mitzvahs, the Esser Kedushas, Abbes HaMikdash, Yerushalayim, Eretz Yisrael, everything was on the higher, in the upper hemisphere, which means that America was taken without any roof. He doesn't say it, but you could see that America indeed was under. It was different. There was no Kedusha that we saw created by all the Aveda, Torah, mitzvahs, and so forth, did not come into this area. So therefore, to change America, you needed the Farbrengen Rebbe to come and say America is nicht anders. And when the Rebbe came, the Rebbe says that a new tnufa in the Aveda of the Rebbe bringing Yiddishkeit to America has started with the Rebbe. When did it start? On Chof Ches Sivan. The Rebbe came on Chof Ches Sivan. He brought Torah to America. That is what happened to Chof Ches Sivan. The Rebbe brought Yiddishkeit to America. The Rebbe brought God, Elikus, Gil Elikus in America. It takes Rabbeim for something. And the Rebbe wants us to know this thing. He wants us to know because we have to know. So this is what Chof Ches Sivan is, and this is what the Rebbe is bringing, basically bringing a Elikus in Welt to the Mokim HaChi Nidoch, a place that for thousands of years did not have any Gilui Elikus. And it turned out, as the Rebbe says, that it turned out to be the place from where everything comes. Such a reversal, such a ishapka. And what is the Koyach of Sivan? The Koyach of Sivan is Gimmel that is giving the Koyach to Dalet, to Tammuz. Tammuz is already a month that is not that time but the Eiveshter gives, but even then, with the Koyches that they take from the third month, have to bring and to work in the fourth month. That is also seen in the numbers that represent Sivan and Tammuz. Sivan is Gimmel, and Tammuz is Dalet. Gimmel and Dalet. Gimmel and Dalet stands for Gimmel or Gmeil Dalet. Be Gimmel to Dalet. Tammuz by itself is a Dal. It has nothing of its own, but it gets everything from Sivan, from the Gimmel. So this is how we have it. Gmeil Dalim, the Gimmel has the point of giving, and he is Gimmel, and he is Gimmel the Dalim. And the Rebbe explains it in the Dasmugayot. Again, I'm not going to go into all the details, but in very short, there are two ways in which poor people are described. There is a Dal and a Rosh. Both are a poor person is called Dalim and Roshim. It's very interesting that the Roshim are in a worse position than Dalim. It says, "But a Rosh ein keil." A Rosh has nothing. There is no such an expression for Dal. A Dal also has nothing, but it doesn't say that a Rosh ein keil. It's also that there is a Rosh is a Churban. What's the difference between a Rosh and a Dal? So look again, when we look at the tzir of a Dalet and the tzir of a Resh, basically almost the same thing. Both have a kav to the Reicha, which shows a chove, and then they get to be nimshach down in such a line, the Resh and the Dalet. What's the only difference between the Resh and the Dalet? The Dalet has a little dot. Where is the dot? On the right. The dot that connects it to the letter before. The dot of the Dalet connects him to the Gimmel. The Gimmel has a function. Gmeil Dalet. The Gimmel gives, and the Dalet receives. When he is a Dal and not a Rosh, we don't say that Dal ein keil, because a Dal has the ability and the connection to the Gimmel, who has the inyan of giving. And that's the Gimmel Dalim, Gmeil Dalim. What is that connection? A little dot on the Kudah. The beetle from the Makabel to the Mashpia. When there is a beetle from the Makabel to the Mashpia, then he is not a Rosh. He has nothing. But you can't call him a Rosh ein keil, because he has the ability of having everything. There is a Gimmel that is ready to give as much as you want to take and go with. So this is what the Rebbe explained. The Tov Shin Nun Aleph, this the Rebbe explained it in great detail. What happened in Tov Shin Nun Dalet? What happened on Gimmel Tammuz? And how did we have to start living on Dalet Tammuz? We became Dalit, no question about it. But we're not Rosh. You know why? Because there is a Gimmel Dalit. There is a Gimmel Dalit. But it takes one thing. It takes the Nekuda of Bittul. The Nekuda of Bittul, and then we're not Goshen. Dalim, absolutely. Because we're missing the most important thing. But there is a Gimmel that gives and gives and gives, and it's ours for the taking. And he says, take it. Go with it. I'm giving you. Just go with it. This is how we live, starting on Dalet Tammuz, from Dalet Tammuz. There is no question. It's a statement. I mean, it doesn't say it, but it begs to be said. And it's certainly something that we have to remember. We have a Gimmel. All it takes is the Nekuda of Bittul. What to be bottled to the Rebbe, to what the Rebbe wants of us. And what does the Rebbe want of us? The Rebbe wants of us to be his. The Rebbe wants of us to be his, to be Zion, to do what he wants of us. And the Rebbe is making it really, really much easier. Yes, he asks a lot, but he's making it easy. There's something that's very, very interesting, again, to point out. I'm talking about what the Rebbe said to learn, what we learn from the Rebbe, and how in our relation to the Rebbe. It was very, very, very fiery words that the Rebbe used, which were, it's expression in Yiddish. What does it mean? Don't think, that people go out there to hunt for birds, and they think that it's right there. It's not there. Don't put it on me. I will help. But don't expect me to do everything. You know something? The Rebbe is a person of his word. He stands by his words. That is the one thing that a Rebbe has not necessarily kept. When it came to this point, the Rebbe said by the Chassidim, by the Babich, that man allemal gedacht on all Chassidim allein, and the Rebbe helped. The Rebbe has changed so many ways in which he takes us by the hand and carries us. In ways that the previous Rebbeim have not done. In so many ways, I'll just point out, in so many ways. The Rebbe, there is a letter that the Rebbe writes to the Frierdiker Rebbe. Why is it that by Chassidim there is no emphasis in telling the stories about the miracles that Rebbeim are performing? We know that this is something that gives energy, that gives chayos. And the Rebbe writes him a whole letter explaining what we know, what the Rebbetzin, in Tammuz Tzedek's Rebbetzin says, she was the daughter of the Mittel Rebbe. And when they were telling, people were very impressed with them. Mephis of Tammuz Tzedek, you know the story. Tammuz Tzedek said he doesn't show Mephis. So somebody said, what's the story of the youth kid? It was a lady that was, didn't have her husband. Her husband left. She had a kid that was mute, and she was a kreuver. And anyway, she sent him in. The guy was sitting there, musing it about at Tammuz Tzedek, and Tammuz Tzedek said, "Go tell the mama that the tata is going to come." So he went and he told it to her, and she fainted. So they asked the Tammuz Tzedek, I didn't know that he has to win. That's why he sent him to talk. But the Rebbetzin, who was the daughter of the Rebbe, says, "Man tat man tzarek valgen, meifs mutter and tissue." Nobody was bothering enough to pick them up. The Rebbe made sure that we'll know that he is making this. The Rebbe made sure. I heard it was yet in Tovshin Yud. The Rebbe once walked into the markets, and Libel Groner was there. He was Libel Groner was the Bocher, was in markets, and Rabbi Moshe Leib Rothstein was the Rebbe's secretary was there. And Rabbi Moshe Leib and the Rebbe tells Rabbi Moshe Leib, I want to tell you that a Shver still continues to do medicine today. And he's telling him a story. That somebody wrote, and he wrote her back, and they got well. The Rebbe still continues making medicine. And then he said something to Moshe Leib Rothstein in Russian, and they both laughed. So when he walked out, Moshe Leib Rothstein says, "You know what he told me?" He says, "He's going to say that it's my medicine." He's going to say that it's my medicine. But yes, the Rebbe wanted, because we have to know. And the Rebbe made sure that yes, if this is what it takes, yes, do that. We have the story of the Rebbe that we know the 7 Torahs that the Rebbe was saying heard from the Baal Shem. The Rebbe had it reprinted. I don't remember what year it was, but it wasn't the late Mems. The Rebbe wanted it reprinted. So what was interesting is he used to have them printed, and he had laying in his print house. He had laying the siche, and they were laying there. And one of the people that he was working with, I think it was a Belzer, that came in. Says, Mordechai. There was a pile there, but this big, a couple of hundred. He says, "You have a terrible mistake here." What's a mistake? It says what the Baal Shem Tov said in Tov Reish Nun Hey. In Tov Reish Nun Hey, the Baal Shem Tov said. So he said, "No, it's not a mistake." What do you mean it's not a mistake? So the Rebbe once by Farbrengen asked a simple question. Why was it necessary for the Rebbe Nishma to tell us that he wasn't Gan Eden? He heard Torah from Baal Shem Tov and so forth. And that this is the question that the Rebbe asked. There was no emphasis on Meipsim, on having people excited by this type of things. So he could have said what it was, and just not say the Baal Shem Tov. Nobody has to know exactly how it happened. And the Rebbe answered that because it would have a bigger impact when we know how it was, that's why the Rebbe made sure that we know. Also, the Rebbe another time said that this is proof of how Lubavitch is connected directly to Baal Shem Tov. We don't find in any other chassidus quotes from the Baal Shem Tov after the Baal Shem Tov started. We only find it by the Rebbe. And that's another reason why it was discussed in this way. So this is something that the Rebbe has basically, and the Rebbe said that he doesn't want to go against his father-in-law. But this is what was necessary. The Rebbe did that. Because that is what was necessary. When it comes to Zgulis, in Lubavitch, there was no Zgulis. They did not give out Zgulis. There's a story with the Rebbe Nishma. There was a Rebbe Nishma was sitting by Farbrengen. There was a Pelisher younger man, and he jumped over and he chapped some shirayim from the Rebbe Nishma. He asked for some shirayim. The Rebbe Nishma said, "Bei uns in Lubavitch, it's not." But he chapped, and he said, "This is a schus." So the Rebbe Nishma said, "Our shirayim are not mezaker, they are mechayev." They are mechayev. You take shirayim. It mechayev means they give you our responsibility. You took Shirayim, now you have to do something about it. So basically, just to give out, the give out is Asher Nechol b'Mitzrayim Chinam is given something that was not exactly us. Wie steht? To ask a broche for a veide is nicht gematem nicht. To ask a broche for a veide. And the Rebbe was constantly giving broches and broches and broches with sgulas. Sgulas, constantly sgulas. Have kids signed up for Tzivos Hashem? Have kids signed up for Eisis and Sefer Torah? Sgulas, sgulas, sgulas. Chitas, Rambam. Everything is a sgula. And this is in order to make it easier for us, because it's a doir yosin, and the Rebbe wants to give us the keches and gives us the keches. And we have to realize what it is. It's sgulas. And the Rebbe makes sure that we know that it's sgulas. If he doesn't know what he's saying, but make sure to say it. It's interesting, I mean, we have the Rebbe told us that to learn from new things. We're talking about this gula for chitas, especially the Rambam. As much as the chitas is the Mogebnsa Inyan, it was started by the Frierdiker Rebbe, and the Rebbe made it his Inyan, because the Rebbe pushed it. But when it comes to the Rambam, it's mamish the Mogebnsa Inyan. It's a very interesting word. I don't know what you know, but I read it. It's a very, very interesting word. The Morev Mismaim of Bossi Legani. The word Bossi. Somebody pointed out a very interesting point. What?
I heard about
You heard about the Siyam Rambam. Very, very interesting word. I would have heard that. Yeah, again. Bossi Legani. The base stands for Bereshis, which is Chumash. The Aleph stands for Ashrei Ha'Ish, which is the Tov stands for Tanya, which is Chitas. And the Yud is the Yesod HaYesodis V'Amud HaChot. So Bossi Legani is have it set up in Chitas. And this is Asgula. What means Asgula? Asgula is something that we don't understand how it works. And it doesn't have to have any specifics. It is Asgula. You could see it in today's world. You could see it. We sometimes see the Rebbe shows us some things. You have computers with Google and something. There is no end to what you could find there. But there is one problem. To get there, you need a password. You could be the smartest person on earth, and you're not going to be able to figure out the password, because the password means nothing. Nothing. But it's still the key, and without the password, you don't have it. That means it's good. We have absolutely no idea how it works. But this opens everything. Chitas is a passport. Chitas is a passport. This is what connects us to the Rebbe, and this is the passport to everything. And that's why it's so important. The inyanim that the Rebbe asks of us is the passwords with which we enter and we get connected to the Rebbe in all of these things. And this is what the Rebbe has, in a way, you could say, yes, he's feeding us, holding us by the hand and showing us every single step and say, take it. How many sikhs, how many Farbrengen, how many videos. The Rebbe was so against pictures. It was, there was not so long ago, but the Rebbe screamed at the people that took pictures. And then everything was open. Everything, because that is what's necessary. And the Rebbe gives and gives and gives and gives. Chaim Rabbi, Chaim.
Chaim.
Net gesagt, Mark Neuach, Elam Chodosh Go. Neuach saw a new world. Rebbe is not Elam Chodosh Go. Elam Chodosh Yotza. The Rebbe created a new world. But the Rebbe created a new world. I heard it from a Stagdishin Yaman. He heard it from a Stagdishin. Shmuel Kamenetsky's son, he said, if you really want to be true, the likes of the Rebbe aren't in Jewish history. You could have very, very, very single ones that basically turned the tide of Yiddishkeit around. And it's something that we have to really, really appreciate. I said it many times. I read it years and years and years and years ago. That somebody wrote a thesis, a doctoral thesis, about what the future of Orthodoxy, particularly Chassidus, in America. It was in the early 50s. And the guy writes, basically, Chassidus in Europe has been disseminated. Again, it has been decimated. There is nothing there. Some of it came over to America. Is there a future for Chassidus in America? For years and years and years, any people that came to America, the next generation did not keep up. So what's going to be the next generation? So he says this is different because they decided that they're going to live in ghettos. And they're not going to allow television, not going to allow any outside influence and so forth and so on. Very good and fine. But who says that their children are going to follow suit? They're trying, but who says they will? Anybody, and what does it mean? The only way that people could envision of what's going to happen is there is a small amount of Hasidim, and they're going to have to wait. We're going to have to wait until they basically multiply enough to start to building up. What did the Rebbe do? Something that nobody in history has ever attempted. Nobody in the history of the Jewish nation. Nobody has ever attempted. Whoever thought that people who have been assimilated for generations will come back in throngs and build up Yiddishkeit, not from inside out, but from outside in. What did it take for that? And why did the Rebbe do it? Because he's the Rosh Bnei Yisrael, and he knew that Eden will answer. And he knew that Eden will respond. There's a story, I said it a million times, but it's something that has to be told. Many of you have remembered it by Farbrengen, and some of you will see the picture. Behind the Rebbe, there was somebody that was standing there, Sergeant Fisher. He was standing there, he's standing there behind the Rebbe in a blue suit, standing there like a soldier. He was a sergeant. He was in World War II. He was in General Patent's, under his command. And he used to go Mivtzoyim every single Sunday. And he used to go to the Navy Yard, the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And he would come into 770 and ask a bocher to come along with him. One time, Rabbi Shapira, little Shapira, came in and he asked me, would you come with me? I said, I heard from little Shapira the story. He went there, and Fisher tells him, usually I come here, and there is a guy that I know already. He's a captain or something, he's a high-ranking officer, and he basically is the first one that puts on tefillin, and once he puts on, everybody follows suit. This is what he's doing. This is how it works. They came there, and this guy is not there. He walks over to a soldier, asks him to put on tefillin, and the guy says no. One after the other, after the other. Finally, he walks over to somebody. He walks over to his ear, says something, whispers something into his ear. And the guy puts on tefillin. And after him, some others started putting on tefillin. It's very interesting. On the way back, Shapir asked him, what did you say? So he says he heard words from the Rebbe, that the Rebbe said by a Farbrengen. If you see a person, you ask him to put on tefillin, and he doesn't want, tell him that there is a Eid in Brooklyn. His name is, and the Rebbe said his last name, Schneerson, Mem Schneerson. He speaks English with a heavy accent. He doesn't speak well English. And the English he speaks is with a heavy accent. And he really wants you to put on tefillin. So he says, I went to the soldier and I told him, Mem Schneerson will do legen tefillin. In Yiddish he told it to him. And the guy put on tefillin. What happened? What happened? He came as a shliach from God. Yechide talks to Yechide Shebenefesh. Der Rebbe redt durch Fischern zu dem Soldat und sagt dem, der Rebbe will das Leben fühlen. Und als Yechide sind on the Yechide Shebenefesh. That's the keiches that the Rebbe is giving us. And this is the keiches with which we go. And that's nicht kingelech. That's a gift that a Rebbe is giving that the previous Rebbeim didn't give. Previous Rebbeim had Chassidim, were very close to Chassidim and so forth. The previous Rebbeim did not give out shlichus. Shlichus means that your shluchah shalom k'mayis. The Rebbeim didn't give out shlichus. They didn't. Now, this is the story with the letter that Rebbe wrote to his daughter. The shlichus that Mordechai had to Reb Chaim Polish, when he had to give him the shlichus, tells you what it meant a shlichus from Rebbe. To be a shliach from Rebbe. And let me tell you something that a Rebbe said by Farbrengen. The Rebbe said once by Farbrengen, "Mi zogte, as soll gehen legen tefillin mit Eid." We tell him to go put on tefillin Eid. So he says, "I'm going to put on tefillin Eid." So the shluchah shalom k'meised. I have to do it. In other words, by going to put on tefillin, he becomes the Rebbe Shliach. So this is what the Rebbe says. The cheshbon is a cheshbon. Indeed. Something that you have to very, very much take into account. But what is the ritual? So what does the Rebbe tell you? That when you go out, when we go out, we ask Eden to lay in tefillin, we are then the shliach from Rebbe. You know what it means? Aid getting gas. Where is Yadidish Benafshe? In 1 minute, you could change to become a shluchah shalom k'meised of the Rebbe. That's a gift that none of the Rabbeim gave to Chassidim. And not only to Chassidim, to anybody that would do it. It's full of the Rebbe says, what is the difference of this generation? The union of humans. And you know why there has to be shlichus? The Rebbe is masbik. There's a sichel to sichus. The Rebbe is masbik. When Yosef, when the Yosef made himself known to the Shvatim, he told them, don't be upset. Now we stop here. We start a new aliyah. What is the new aliyah? The Rebbe says, why do you stop in mid-sentence and you call up another person? Why don't you finish? The same thing happens again when the Shvatim came to Yaakov. They say, oh, this is then we stop here, we call up another person, and he said, again, mid-sentence. What's happening? So the Rebbe says it's not mid-sentence, because there are 2 points here. One point is, Yosef said, the Eibush that sent me, and I came here. We say, Rei Yisrael, Azinu, Neye Katzen Yosef. Yosef is called the Neye Katzen Yosef because Yosef, by coming to Golus Mitzrayim and surviving Mitzrayim, has paved the road for Eden in Golus to be able to survive Golus. That's one point. But then there was another point. Hifrani Elikim be'eretz oni. Turning around the Golus. Said the Rebbe like this. It's 2 separate levels. The first level is something that Yosef has given to every single Eden. That's to survive Golus. To turn Golus around is something that's only the Koyach of Yosef. And for that, you have to be Yosef's Shliach. That's why the Rebbe is giving everyone Shlichus, because that's the only Koyach. And this is something, a gift that the Rebbe is giving us. A gift that none of the Rebbeim has given us. And it is to be cherished. Because Yosef Masha Ani Yosef Balabais Yosef Ani Yosef Balabais. The Rebbe was Chanetzi gegeben. He is giving us the unbelievable opportunity and privilege to be his shluchim to carry this out. And I want to tell you something that I found out 2 years ago that simply shook me up. And I told it, but I have a chance to say it. That is something that's absolutely clear that when we go, we don't go with our keches, we go with the keches of the Rebbe. But I want to tell you something, how far the keches of the Rebbe put in the keches. This was 2 years ago. It was going around on the WhatsApp. A shliach told a story. Shliach told a story. He said it was Chanukah. He says he got a telephone call. And somebody on the other side of the line, Rabbi, introduces himself. He says, I'm not going to tell you my name. But he says, he's a Jew. He's a Jew simply because he was born to a Yiddish town and a Yiddish family. And he grew up in a Yiddish family. But Rahman al-Islam, he decided, and he converted and became a practicing Rahman al-Islam, a practicing Catholic. And he says now he decided he wants to come back. What does he have to do? So obviously he lived like this for years. And now he decided he has to come back. So, Shluchim have usually sayat in Ishmael. And he spoke to him and so forth. But then he says, I'm sure that you'll understand if I ask you the question. What happened? What made you change your mind? And he says like this. This morning I was riding and I saw a car with a Hanukkah menorah on top. And I knew that I have to come back. The Hanukkah menorah, Ha'id Rahman al-Islam that Shmat himself. The Hanukkah menorah on a car. The Monza Neshama, after so many years that he's coming back. You know what it means? Some of us put on the menorah, yeah, because the Rebbe said in somewhere. We realize the keiches that the Rebbe has put in the menorah. So I'm not finished, I want to tell you. This is because it showed me a completely new level. So I told the story where the Shabbos after we were sitting in Morris at Farbrengen. I told the story. There's a younger man there. There's a new shliach, not far from the area. And he says, I want to tell you a story. He said he was the first Chanukah that he's in his town of Gimmel. Put up a Chanukah menorah at his shul. And then he says where he lives at a corner where there are a couple of streets that come together. And so that he thought to himself that if he puts up a menorah there, it's going to have tremendous exposure because all the cars will see it. So he put up a menorah there. He says, the next day, there's a knock on his door. A lady comes in. He says, I have to talk to you. So she passed by this Hanukkah menorah. She found out that this is a Jewish symbol. And she says, somehow, it really, really shook her up. I couldn't get the picture of the menorah out of my mind. I just couldn't get it out. I'm driving, I'm going, whatever I'm doing, I have this menorah in front of me. I thought I'm going off my mind. She says, no, I've never had anything like this. It's simply there. I cannot get rid of that picture. She says her mother lives in town. She went to her mother and she says, something is happening to me. I've never had it before. I saw that Jewish symbol, the menorah, and I can't get rid of it. She says, my mother broke down. She says, I want you to know that I'm Jewish. You are Jewish. A story that happened 2 years ago. The man is Baumgart Mashiach. The lady knocked on it. She found out that she was Jewish. That's the keiches that the Rebbe has put in. Sorry. We have to realize that. We have to realize what we have. It's beyond. And there are so many stories like this. Not to utilize is really, really the greatest shame. We have the ability to do it. And we should do it. And this is what the Rebbe wants us to do. Story time. I'll tell you another story. It's a story that I heard from the Rebbe. It's really because I make this story. So he says they were standing at the airport in the store. And pretty much feeling somebody standing there, he says, staring at them, looking at them. They felt basically intimidated. The guy stood there and he says, they were waiting for him to come and bounce on them. And for a long time, they were getting very uncomfortable. Eventually, he starts walking towards them. They're bracing themselves. The guy comes over, and he says, listen, I want to tell you something. My name is such and such. And he gave a name that was like a very, very well-known name. And he says, no, it's not me. The name that you think is my brother. So he is my brother. He's the one that's very famous. But he says, I also have an important position and so forth. And he says, I want to tell you a story. He says, when we were kids, our father and us, we lived in New York. His father worked for some Jewish organizations and so forth, and he was sent as a representative to be worked in New York. So his father worked for an organization that was subsidizing Yiddish Moses. It was the early 40s, very, very early 40s. And he said a request came in from Lubavitch, that Lubavitch is asking for a grant. And they write that the Rebbe came to America, and the Rebbe is the leader of world Jewry, and so forth, and he's asking for a grant. So basically, the person that was in charge of deciding was a good. He was, says one day he tells him, let's drive over there. Without saying anything, they wanted to come in, surprise, and see what it is. And they are expecting from all that was described, the way the description was, they were expecting to come to a big, big edifice, and so on and so on. So they pull up to 770, that's the address. He saw that the guy was totally, unimpressed. They came in, whether they see there was a little yeshiva, but it's probably 15, 20 kids, and so what? The guy looks around, and he saw, he saw that there is nothing good. Somehow, some of the Chassidim realized what's going on. They went over to him, they started talking to him, and so forth, and he was, he's polite enough to, he said, I saw that there was nothing good. After a little while, he was ready already to go. He said, before you go, the Rabbi asked if you would mind coming up this. So, meaning the Frierdiker Rebbe is on the second floor, would you come up to see it? He says, oh, sure. I'm going to say, no, for sure. He says, they came up in the elevator, the doors open, and there's the Rebbe sitting there behind the desk. And as they come in, the guy runs over to the Rebbe. He says, Rabbi, what could I do for you? And the Frierdiker Rebbe turns, like somebody shows me, what did he say? So they told him what he said. Frierdiker Rebbe was, he had difficulties with his motion and so forth. The Frierdiker Rebbe showed like this. In other words, that he should approve whatever they asked. Says, Rabbi, sure, absolutely, no question. What else could I do for you? Very good. Asks again whether they should translate. Nothing else. It's fine. He said he went back. And the guy was, he saw he was very, very, very like agitated. The guy was very agitated, very, very excited about it. Says he felt great because he knew that what Lubavitch does, and he was hoping that he's going to do. So he was glad. But he says they started going back, and then he turns to the guy and says, "Tell me, I mean, I saw what was going on. What happened? What made you change your mind? What happened? You didn't see? You didn't see? What? The door opens up, and there is an angel sitting there. It's not a human being, there's an angel. So you see an angel walk up and you say, Angel, what could I do for you? When he tells you what did you do, and you say, is there anything else I can do? Didn't see it? The guy says, we were kids. Our father told us this story so many times. He said, I never, in our mind, there's the angel. So I was sitting now, and I was standing now and looking. I look at you. People are running. They're running to catch a flight. You walk over to them. That they don't send you flying a kite. He says, it's unbelievable. You stop people in the middle of this, and instead they come over. What do you think is happening? You think it's you? It's the angel that goes in front. This is what the guy says, it's the angel that goes in front. This is what we have to know. It's the angel that goes in front of us. Abraham Avinu said to Elazar, the Malach is going to go ahead and he's going to take care of it. This is for each one of us when we want to do something from God. The angel is going in front of us. Ist nicht in der Kirche.
This is the problem. The grace is the angel.
What? No, he will eat. The goys are the angels.
The problem.
The goys are the angels. Sometimes we have to hear from the goys.
Thank you.
Chaim always said, Chaim, Chaim, Chaim. Yeah. So as to tell a story, it was one of the first stories that I heard firsthand. The Rebbe Smith, you know, in the early years he didn't hear so much. This was something that I heard was probably in Tafshin Chavches. Was a young man, his name was Abel. His son is the Shliach in Singapore. Yosef Abel was one of the Bochum that came from Morocco to Benoit. So the mothers of the Shluchim went to Morocco and they used to send young kids to Benoit. They managed to grow up here. So he wasn't Benoit in the early years, the early Tafshin years. Eventually he came to America. In 1970, and then went to learn in Cleveland, and eventually he came back to France because there was also, just like there were Boch in Uruguay, in Yeshiva, there were also girls that were sent to the Swifke, they were sent as young girls, 12, 13 years old. And they grew up here. And they got married there. So he married a girl in Swifke. So he came there and they became Chosn Khaled. And then they got married eventually in Yeshiva. They got married a couple of months later. So in between, he went home. I believe his parents still live in Morocco. So he went to Morocco, and when he came back, he told me that story. So that's the story I heard from him. The story that he said was like this: he was walking the Jewish quarter. Jewish quarter there is called the Malach. He was walking there, and he's passing a little hut, like a very, very sorry-looking house. There's a person standing outside. He says he's a Mehil, and he needs 10 people to come to mushroom service. You can imagine it was not a very, very rich family, and so forth and so on. So, he wasn't working, he does, So he came in, he wasn't the center yet. We have to wait until there's going to be more people doing that. So he says he saw there an older gentleman who at first he thought was the Zayder, but then realized this was the father. This was the father. Eventually, there was a minion, and they brought out the baby. But that baby brought him out on a platter. Just we do by Pinyaben, they do it by a bris. And there was something there, you could imagine how much there was already. It was a very, very poor place. But under the baby was a big picture of the Rebbe, a poster picture of the Rebbe. And everybody was standing there, nobody knew who it was and why this picture is there. And they started asking the father what it is. So he says, I'll tell you this story. Let's first have the bris, and then we'll sit down, that some bigger, some Suda, he's going to tell the story. So this is the story that he told. He said they were married for 17 years. Never didn't have children. 17 years. Whatever it is, how much they could do already, they didn't know. 17 years. Eventually, he thought of an idea. He said, him and his wife thought of an idea. We'll buy a picture of Shimon Bar Yochai. Shimon Bar Yochai is this part of the Shver, Tzadik. They put it in their bedroom, and the schut of Shimon Bar Yochai, maybe they'll have a baby. Little did he know there were no photographers in the time of Shimon Bar Yochai. So he went to the store, it's a Jewish bookstore, and he's asking for a picture of Shimon Bar Yochai. And the guy didn't want to lose a sale. So he asked him what he needs the picture for, told him what he needs the picture for. The guy said, look, I don't have a picture of Shimon Bar Yochai, but I have here a picture of a tzaddik who is just like Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. So he said, I don't know who it is, but I could tell you what I was told. But this is a tzaddik Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. We put in the picture in our bedroom, and we have the baby. he was there, so he was able to tell him that this is the Rebbe because he was the Lubavitcher. And this is how the story is. That's the story of it. This is the tzaddik like of Shimon Bar Yochai. And Weiss, what was his name? Weiss from Los Angeles. Beryl went over to Mugabe Labreimer. He said to Mugabe Labreimer, he wants a bracha for his son for children. He gave children also for years and years. He said, Shimon Yochai, Labreimer. So the Rebbe said, no, bet Bagab Shimon Yochai. He's the Rebbe gesagt, bet Bagab Shimon Yochai. So look to the Rebbe, he says, I am asking Bagab Shimon. The Rebbe got very serious and gave him a bracha. What? Yes, but he had a child. Yes, child. But this is how it is. The Rebbe told him, why don't you ask Rav Shimon Bar Yochai? And he said, I am asking Rav Shimon. This is the story tells you. That's why you wouldn't have known the story if he wasn't there at this time. I'm not heard it. You know what? I'll tell you, the first Mephis that I heard from the Rebbe, I said it many times because this basically tells us how the Rebbe changed the world. That was in Tafshin Chav Zayin. The summer, I remember it like today, it was partially by those times. In Brino, at that time, there weren't too many guests that you could come in. A small crowd and so forth. And on one Friday, a bocher comes in. He's a bocher from Antwerp, from Belgium. And he was in France, and he decided he's going to come from Shabbos to Brino. So he was up for Shabbos. Shabbos afternoon, I sat down with him and he said, why don't we learn a Sikh? I remember because we learned Sikh about Sikh. So we start talking, and he said, I had a correspondence with the Lubavitcher. He's a young kid, my age. I've been 18, 19 years old, 20 years old at the guy. He said, I had a correspondence with the Rebbe. It was, correspondence with the Rebbe. A young kid has correspondence with the Rebbe. He said, well, the Rebbe didn't answer my last letter, so this is how the correspondence started. Yeah. What was the story? So he tells me. His father was a businessman. And like in Antwerp, most of the people are dealing with diamonds and so forth. But he took ill, became very sick. The father became very sick. At first, he was still able to work, but eventually he couldn't. So he took him out from yeshiva, and he asked him to run. He would give him directives, and asked his son to run. His son is a young kid. I mean, how much could you do already? So income there isn't. The expenses were just growing. He says it was a disaster. They were just by collapse. They didn't know what to do. So some Lubavitchers, the Lubavitcher in Antwerp, heard the story. He says, why don't you write to the Rebbe? What is he going to do for him? What is he going to do for him? He says, he came to his father, he says, this person says to write to the Rebbe. What could we lose? So he wrote to the Rebbe from Matzah. He says he got a letter express. Express letter came back. And the letter says like this. On this and this date, was a couple of days later. Make sure to go to the beverage, whatever they call it, to the books at the exchange where they sell. And make sure to buy the Rebbe tells him what particular item there is a particular item that's going to be for sale. Make sure to buy as much as you could already. Says you still have a good credit, your father still has good credit. So try to make sure that you get as much money as you could get together and buy as much as you could of that item. Very, very surprising. It tells him exactly when and what item to buy. Says, because just a couple of days later, he went there and he saw the price is over. He says, calls his father. I said, you know something, it doesn't look like we could lose on. I don't know what's gonna be. So why don't we follow? Says they did, and they were able to sell it enough to pay off all the debts. Diabetes. How did he know? He's in he's in New York. How does he know about the market in Belgium? Yet what's going to be in a couple of days from now? How did he know? So I sent him a letter and I asked him how to do it. And he never answered me. That's how our correspondence stopped. Just you're laughing. I was a young boy. It was the first time that somebody tells me a story like this. I was sitting there, I was speechless. Speechless. What's it speechless? And he says, until today. How did he know? How did he know? So I tried explaining to him. Talk to the wall. Second. Talk to the wall. How did he know? How did he know? And I said to him, do you have this letter? So he was in Chabad once on Shabbos. And he was by somebody for Shabbos. He told the guy the story. The guy asked him if he has the letter. He said yes. He showed him the letter. The guy asked if he could have it. So he left it. Okay. That was a yeshiva. There's no way in the world could he believe as he can sein a Eid that has Ruach HaKodesh. Talk to him, it's like the war. And you want to know something? He wasn't the only one. Mostly Litvish relatives. The Poshet didn't believe. They didn't believe in Ruach HaKodesh. How did the world change today? How did the world change today? And who changed it? Now we're talking about Hafotza Samayonis Chutza. We're always talking about Hafotza Samayonis Chutza to be Freie. The Rebbe turned around the Flume. They started becoming Maminim. Poshet Maminim in the Meibush. And that Hashem is Menabi Bnei Odom. As you can say, Eden that have a Keiches Alikis. The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya that Ushidefim Amiris Arachim is the Mevsim that Hashem to Tzadikim. This is Gili Alikus. Who brought this about? A total reversal. When we look about the terms of Chassidus, that was completely alien. How many people knew that there are two nefoshes by Israel? Chassidim, so-called Chassidim. They didn't know that. To us, but what a little kid knows, they didn't. And what is today? What tell them that this is Chassidus? What is Chassidus? Melech Basoda. Oh, this comes from the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe writes it too. Yeah, the Alter Rebbe writes it too. Melech Basoda. Yeah. Everything. Poshet Hafotza Samayonis Chutza. The Chutza in Frume Eden. What? Frume Eden. The Rebbe Tiber can't develop. It's a different world. I'm repeating the same stories again, but it's something that I lived through it. I used to give Tanya Shur. I used to give a Tanya Shur in Yeshiva. We had to defend anything with us. You know, I was quite as I said. You're asking me to defend? You defend. We don't have to defend anything. But I want to tell you something. Used to be in Miami. I had a shul, not shul father. For a little while, there was a shul. There was a Rabbi Stern, Rabbi Tibor Stern. He had a beautiful shul in Miami. He took a sabbatical, so I took over the shul. Anyway, there was some Eden there, and I spoke. I was there for a little while. So there was a Polish leader, a Heimish leader, Mamsh, a Heimish leader. Was you know? He says to me, you're not a hot about it. Yeah, for me. So why do you say that? He said, because I hear you say every Dosha, yeah, my listen, you don't constantly say the Rebbe. I'm sure that you don't have a picture of the Rebbe in your house. Yeah. I said, I gotta have. So he tells me, he says, that's, I don't want to say the word. I mean, it was unbelievable. He says, he says, somebody was on me. You know what you say? What do you say? So I'll tell you why I'm saying it. He says, I have the biggest respect for the Bible. Remember, we're talking about close to 50 years ago. Think about it. Early it was in the Lamed Hayden's. He says, I have the biggest respect. That's the biggest nefesh. Bochim go out from the summer. It was the summer. Going back to the they go. They don't have what to eat. They don't have what to sleep. And they go out. But I heard a story. He says, I heard a story. So there were a couple of bochim. They go back to they finish their provisions, and they don't have what to eat. So they're going into a store. Remember, some of you do not remember. But at that time, you didn't find things with actually. I mean, today there is almost nothing that doesn't have a hatchet. At that time, you didn't find things with a shade. So he says they're going into a store and they're trying to find something, and they don't. They come buy a couple of fruits, and tomatoes, and so forth, and then they look at some sardines, whatever it is. They look at the hatchet. It wasn't a very good one. Should be taken. Put it down. Then they look around. There is nothing else. They decided that come to the counter. Says they put it down. The guy takes out his wallet to pay, and there's a picture of the Rebbe. And he took the sardines and put it aside. So I'm asking, von den Obersten hat nicht gemäuert. Und von der Rebbe hat ja. And this one of the okay. The Rebbe took me geholfen. Never. So you know something? You just told me and my wife, over Yehold Glavia. But you know something? You just passed me something. According to you, there was Gzegas at Talmud. They burned the Talmud. According to you, that man Farbrengen Shas. What are you talking about? I said, no. I said, they did. Because it says in the book that Yosef was going glasses and that the son, the Jokne shall all be gesagt. Von dem Ebersten hat nicht gemeldet. Und von den Daten hat jemand mit der Verbrennen nicht vor, das habe ich so. He was left there. But that was how people thought, how people were thinking. What happened? This is what I say. The Rebbe created a new world. The Rebbe created a new world. Yeah, if you'll tell somebody a story like this, they can't believe that it was even that was even an issue. I'm really sicher, ob es am Schimmel hat nicht die picture gehabt. But this is, I have a shivy. It was a Holocaust survivor. And that's what it was. It was I'll never forget it. It's a story that, there are some stories that I'll remember forever. The guy that couldn't understand how the Rebbe knew, and he sent to the Rebbe, and this is how they did. This is what he told me. I mean, to me it was. I had a correspondence. The Rebbe didn't answer his last letter. That's why it stopped. The letter was, he asked the Rebbe how he knew. So what does that mean? The Rebbe made a new world, and he's set us with the keiches to change it. And at the same time, what the Rebbe demands of us is not less than what the Rebbe is. You know, something. Some people say, Reb Nissen was once Yechidus. I remember it because it was around my chas at the time. because around this time, Tammuz is my anniversary. This was supposed to be Tammuz. Shabbos, Shevuch was Farbrengen. He said, he was one guy. He said to the Rebbe that he doesn't know whether he should Farbrengen anymore. People tell him that, asking about this type of thing, that's not something that must be want. He said, should I? And he said, the Rebbe goes, mir want es nicht ein. And he sagt, mir want es nicht ein. They told him, es darf hier nicht essen, nein. Aber als wir will essen, das, und man essen der andere, befürchten. Told me, darf nicht da unterhalten, schon, aber das schon darf man da. Und mein Mann was different. The Rebbe stood and gave everybody a Kuntris Etzchai. What was it? To stand on the shelf. In Tavshin Tezvov, there was a letter that the Rebbe wrote. So I think it was a new conference of Farbrengen. The Rebbe writes to them. They had a conference. The Rebbe said that you're inviting me to come. I cannot come, but he has a request of them. There is a din in Shulchan Aruch that before you daven, is beinim begadlos habeira v'shifros ha'odem. It's a din in Shulchan Aruch. Why aren't Rabbanim making sure that everybody does? Trachten see this. That's why Oivdim, right? And Rabbi is not Chachmas. It's a din in Shulchan Aruch. These are, but a din in Shulchan Aruch is, there is no Chachmas. The Rebbe never took away, the Rebbe gave more. And he gives the keiches for that. It's a very, very big indicator of the Rebbe. Pirkei Avos. Rebbe Eimer is Zohi Derech Yishar, Zohi Derech Yishar Yishayavel Le'odom. Also the Paras Lamina, include the Paras Lamina, the Paras Lamina. It's all of the Kasha. This is how you measure the Paras Lamina, the Paras Lamina. So the Rebbe says basically, this is the Paras Lamina means the Aveda Mitzich and Aveda Mityan. And a person has to do both. What Aveda Mitzich and Aveda Mityan. But the Rebbe here, the way he said it was, he started with a question. Everybody is mentioned by name. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, in the next mission, is also mentioned by name. Why is he mentioned here as Rebbe? Why is it not mentioned by name that is mentioned as Rebbe? The Rebbe said because the only one that could ask that before you completely get finished with you have already also to do with others as well. That's why there is no name. That's the Rebbe. That's the Rebbe. And he's telling this is us. This is what he wants of us. And not because we have to do for others, because this is us. In every single way, the Rebbe wants to learn it. Learn it before the Rebbe wants to learn it. Before the Rebbe wants to learn it. Push it. Small Mishkiga, learn it. Daven. In jede Sache, the Rebbe month, and give the keiches of them. And basically, we have the keiches. He's giving us to no end. To no end. Chaim Rebbe said, Chaim. Yamba
Let me go get I want to show you what it is. So when he goes out, the girl says, he doesn't let me touch that. He told me, doesn't let me touch that.
Boy, where are you?
Comes back to him and says, he told me. He doesn't need him. So he says, no, whoever gave you. Whoever gave you, he tells you you're only allowed to marry. You can't marry anything. He was shocked with the girl. She wants to
Rabbi said, you know what? Start with story time. The Rebbe said what we have to do on Yishvat is talk about the Rebbe's houses. What's interesting is that this is what the Rebbe did. The Rebbe spoke about the Chavei's houses. Another point that the Rebbe very much spoke about is Kashkas. Kashkas is in the first Maimer. This Kashkas is about the Tzav. Because it's all. It's all. The Rebbe said about the Rebbe's houses stories. So, talking about stories. There are two stories. One is Rabbi Bukit. He used to have a shul in Farbrengen. There's a person that asked him if he could arrange for him a yechidus with him. So he called Rabbi Chanukah and they arranged. The guy went into yechidus, and the next day, Rabbi Chanukah calls Rabbi Bukit and says, "What is this guy that you sent? There's something wrong with him. He just ran away. In the middle of yechidus, he just ran out. He ran away. What? Find out what's going on, because the Rebbe has a check for him." The Rebbe tried finding him, and he realized that he's avoiding him.
What?
Avoiding him. But eventually, he met up with him. And he says, "They're looking for you." They're looking for you. He says, "What happened?" So he told this story. He says he's a very poor person, and he has to marry off a child. So he's going to every single person, to a bonim, to a baby, he's asking them for money. He says, he tells him how he has to a lot of children and so forth. This is the first one he has to marry, and then he's going to have others. So he has a list of children. And he says in order to make it a little bit better, he added on to his children, he added on a couple of names. What?
No, his children. Take it 5 to 9. He has 9 kids. It becomes a bigger story.
It's a nice story. He says, and it worked. People have a person has 7 children. It worked. Everybody has to give his money more. He went to the Rebbe. The Rebbe was nuts, The Rebbe looks at the Rebbe had paper in front of him. He had a pencil. By each one of the children, he made a sign. And then when it came to the Rebbe says, "And who is this?" And who is the next one? They said he simply ran away. The Rebbe he discovered me. He got me. He ran away. But the Rebbe prepared a check for him. They looked for him because they had a check for him. That's the Rebbe's story. But then there is a story. This is the Rebbe's story. There are plenty of stories, but this is a story that goes beyond. It's the Talmud Rebbe. He told the story. Says there was a couple who never saw. Never didn't have children for many years. It was more than 10 years. And he was a Litvisher, and he had his Rav, his Shiva, and they all started pushing him that they should divorce, be Megawish, try and marry somebody else. So they really didn't want to. Time passed by, and they were under lots of pressure, and they decided. She says it was the night before they were going to be kidnapped. And they were both very beautiful. They were very sad because they lived together. They were good. They lived together without children anymore. They had a very special bond. So they didn't fall asleep. Eventually, but he dozed off and she dozed off. And then after a little while, she wakes him up. She says, "Tell me, what do you have with Lubavitcher?" Well, didn't want to hear. What's the story? She had a dream. The rabbi came to her in a dream and told her, "Your husband did something where Al Pi Shulchan Aruch is mechuyev to ask me mechila."
Yes, the rabbi?
Yes. Yeah. He did something where Al Pi Shulchan Aruch is mechuyev to ask me mechila. Tell him to do what the halacha says we should do. Don't get divorced, you will have children. He got upset. I finally fell asleep. You're waking me up for some crazy things. And he went back to sleep. She also dozed off. And she dreamt the same thing again. And this time she woke him up and she says, "No, you will tell me what's going on."
Now what?
You will tell me what will going on. And he had to say, months later, he was a bocher in the Stag Yeshiva. They had a purim, they had a play of something, and he played mamish, unbelievable, zilzul, and that's a kia in Rebbe's Kodesh. Shafi halacha, he's mechuyev to take a million people to the oil and ask mechila. That's halacha in Shulchan Aruch. So what is the Rebbe telling? As far as I'm concerned, I made it with the ganzen Hand, but that is a halacha.
Oh.
And you have to follow the halacha. That's what the Rebbe said. You have to follow the halacha. Follow the halacha, and you'll have children. He went, the next day he went up into his Rosh Yeshiva, and the guy told him, "Don't play around with it. You better make sure to do it." Then he says, "You'll come to the Eihel and you'll ask to have a million people come with you, and you'll ask Mechila the Rebbe. I don't know whether they will come out from there alive." You tell what you're asking Mechila for. He says, "But I'm going to call a friend of mine," he said, "Rosh Yeshiva, New York. They'll have
His brother-in-law.
what?"
I think it was his brother-in-law.
That's what he said. They said he was going to arrange to have a minyan. They go to there, the Mechila, and this is what they did. And this is Mimochesh mi alamayim lahashkin sholem ben ish leish. Ha'id is Rachmon litzlan v'vazda dem Rebbe in such a way that there is a gzeira min hashamayim against it. The Rebbe comes in a cholim. It says, the Rebbe said many times, for the Rebbe to come in a cholim. It's difficult for them to do. So the Rebbe is coming. Don't get divorced. Do what you have to do.
Wow.
He used to bring his child that was born a year later. Every year he would take him to the oil to teach him how you have to.
How you have to do this.
That's crazy. Wow.
Right?
That's amazing, actually.
That's certainly something that we can learn from the Rebbe. Many things that it's a little bit difficult to emulate the Rebbe. Now it's just learning. Yes, it takes some effort, but it's something that we certainly can learn. The Rebbe is to know and limitless.
There was a young man who wanted to end his life. And he confided into someone, a friend. So the friend tells him, "You know what? Go to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. You say goodbye to him. You want to end your life." So he comes out to the Yechidus with the Rebbe. And he says, "I changed my mind." What did the Rebbe say to you? He said, "The Rebbe didn't say anything to me. When I told my intentions, the Rebbe sat there and cried with tears running down his cheeks. If somebody cares so much about me, then I'm staying.
Wow.
It's a story. I have here.
The
Story
last
that I heard
week-
from what?
This past week, they put out one of those things with the shluchim. So the guy was climbing over the gate, and at the mall, cell phone rings, and the shliach is buzzing it. How are you? And he climbed back over the gate. Back.
What?
A guy, a college kid, was climbing over the gate to jump from the roof, and the cell phone rings. The shliach is calling him. How are you?
I heard this story. My younger man is a doctor. He's a doctor. Good doctor. He's a specialist. He's a pediatric neurologist. It's a good doctor. But you know, they had some extra income, so he was also doubling as an emergency room doctor. And he did it in a little town not far from the Holland town. It's probably a forsaken town there. He was working there. It's very good income. I heard the story from him the next day after it happened. It was Tulameid Pesach. He was there. And in comes in from Bella Park, you know, a little girl. You know, he was surprised to see Aiden there. The guy was surprised to see a beard that does a doctor. Anyways, you know, they came, the maid outing someplace, and she fell, and she needed stitches. And they told him, somebody told him that if you don't want to wait a half a day, you know, this is an emergency room. It's probably nobody's there. You'll get it done very fast. So, okay, so he's working on her. And then the guy says, "You're the Lubavitcher." Yes. Yeah. Now let me tell you a story. So he says like this. Grew up in a Flume home, I don't know, Siddish, but a Flume home in Bogota. He was 19, 20 years old, and he went through a tremendous crisis.
What's the one?
Tremendous crisis.
This Bach.
A tremendous crisis. He said it ate at him for a long time, and he really did not want to do it. He wanted to do everything. He said he was struggling. The only reason that held him back is how could he, you know, hurt his parents like this, and so forth, you know. But he says, but eventually he felt he can't do it. For a long, long time. Eventually he decided, no matter what, he's going to drop it. So somehow,
This is the
what?
father of the girl. Father of the
The
girl.
father tells the story.
Father
Father
of
of
the
the girl, yeah, the little girl. And he tells the story. He said somehow he ended up in Crown Heights. Went to the 77. They said that the Rebbe is coming to die. He said, you know, they make like a spiel or so forth, and he's standing there. He says the Rebbe came in, and he looked at me. So he looked at me. I don't know how long it was, but it was enough that I decided I'm staying. The look, he says, I decided I'm staying. I'm staying free because of that. He says, and he started feeling good about everything. So by the next Yom Tov, he came to Keshav Bracha. He thanked the Rebbe for what he did for him. He said, I still have the Keshav Bracha, and every Seder, I give out some of the Keshav Bracha, I give out to him. The little girl pipes up, oh, I said, that's the secret of the wine that you give out. It's a story that I heard the next day from the. So the Rebbe passed by, I don't know how long it was, he says, but he looked at me, and that look I knew was I'm staying. Many times did the Rebbe look at us?
Oh, you got to go. Just
The Rebbe said, take a picture. When you look at the picture, he's looking at you. That's what the Rebbe said.
Yeah, I'm going to tell a story just because I'm ready to leave, but I want you to know this is I'm not about to myself. I heard this story 4 years ago. I was away with my wife. We went on vacation, and in that city there was a Lubavitcher who had a shul, and every Shabbos there would be guests, tourists, and he had 50 to 100 people. They had kiddush. They prepared meals, people prepared events. And he told me this story. He said this happened just a few days before I came. A lady came over to him, and she said, "You're a Lubavitcher." And he said, "Yes." She said, "Let me tell you a story about who your Rebbe is. Not who he was, who he is." Good. And she tells like this. 30 years ago, she had a friend. The friend came over to this lady, and she tells her she has a problem. Her husband has unfortunately Yener Machala, and the doctors tell them there's nothing more they can do. In a couple of months, it's over. So this lady tells the friend, the wife, "I heard that people could write a letter to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he gives a bracha, and it helps. Write a letter." So the wife says, "I would love to write a letter to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, but my husband is very much against Lubavitch, and he would die on the spot if he knew that I wrote a letter to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. But maybe you'll write for me." So the lady sat down and wrote a letter in place of the wife and mailed it off. 2 weeks later, the wife calls up the lady and says, "You know what? My husband went for a checkup to the doctor, and they told him it's in remission. As long as it's like this, it's good." Good. So she tells her, the friend who wrote the letter, says, "You see, we wrote a letter. The Rebbe didn't even answer us. He gave a bracha and it helped." Then this lady continued, and she said, "That was 30 years ago. 2 weeks before I came here, I was in my house. I live alone now. And I was going through old letters and pictures. And I didn't know what to do. I saw behind one letter, there was something stuck. I pulled it off. And I saw it's an envelope, a letter from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, dated 30 years ago. He wrote 30 years ago. It was an answer to her letter. She felt so bad. She right away called up the wife and told her, I got a letter, I didn't even know, I'm coming straight to you now, and you could open it and read it." She went to the wife opened the letter, pulled it out, and looks at it, and it's turned white. Then she says, "Let me tell you what happened. My husband was living the whole time. He started to not feel good. He went to the doctor, and the doctor told him, whatever you had, it came back now with a vengeance. It's in very bad shape. But time has passed. Now there are 2 places that could possibly treat you. One's in Boston and one's in New York. Take your pick and go." So then she showed her the letter. The letter wrote 30 years ago that she found on that day that they had to make a decision. The Rebbe wrote, "Since you have a choice for treatment to go to Boston or to go to New York, you should go to New York." She opened the letter the day they needed the answer. She found
You
it.
heard that from?
I heard it from the shliach, the Lubavitcher, who was a rabbi in that shul, who heard it from the lady just a few days before.
Well, that doesn't scare you, I don't know what does.
This is how long did this story happen?
This story was 4 years ago. Right now, 4 years.
Fine.
You don't mind? No, sit.
Huh?
What?
It came from me. I told the story to somebody who told it to Rabbi Groner. Who told the story here in the shul before I had a chance to express.
This is it. You'd rather you're not there? Oh, yeah, because that's scary. Open a letter 30 years later to get the right answer. Oh, boy.
Chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim.
Chaim, Chaim.
The hope is. So, lemon the cases that we're getting and using. Chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim.
Guess it's no joke. It's no joke, right? We're playing West again.
You're hiring him for the last, you're hiring him?
I know this rabbit for years.
This time you asked early. This time you asked early.
The thing is I don't, to me, it's not a wonder. I mean, it's the Rebbe, so you don't really.
But we have to know the stories.
Right, we have to know the stories, but it's the Rebbe still. No,
This is Gile Lakus.
Yeah, true.
That's the story. I'm not going to I could sit here for 3 hours.
To sit in 3 days. True.
It's unbelievable. Call to the basic.
Yaakov, Shkosh.
For what? For being his child.
No, for
He's thinking. He's thinking. Oh, saying it.
I gotta make this. Anybody wash there? I wash. I can make myself. Yeah, 1 second.
Very much.
I eat over there.
Is this
Who
recorded?
him to you?
Is this recorded?
No?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I didn't do, okay, Chaim, thank you very much.
What did I do?
Yeah, exactly. Thank
You
you.
wanna-
That's
I didn't have in mind
Thank
necessarily, but I have to make.
Anyway,
I can't make myself. Shkosh, thank you, everybody.
We have a lot of questions, but okay.
What?
Now we have a lot of
Shkosh.
questions.
What's
I
question?
think that's we're mostly businessmen, we're not small yet.
He wants the Ruchnius.
Here's the problem, you think you're a businessman, you're already all lost.
You could become a shliach. That's the gift that I
My money is a shliach.
What?
My money is a shliach. It's never in my pocket. It's always out of.
You go with It's exactly the point.
You don't have to try. You do it. Shkosh. So I can't make a mistake because I did bench it. I did wash it.
You didn't watch.
Anybody else? Okay.
Anybody else didn't watch that wants to make a Mizuman?
I also didn't want to.
1 second. I washed. I can't make a mistake though, right?
You're the only one who watched.
Oh, yeah, but you guys didn't wash?
No,
What's been yeah? It's Gimmel Tammuz for crying out loud. I gotta go back to the lair to wash. All right, no, remember. All right, the biggest one better.
Open herring?
Everything, listen, is an open account.
No permission being up to this honest.
No?
You're just waiting to clean up? Is that what you
Uh-huh. I was trying to stay up, participate in the Farbrengen. Why is it so long?
Parents don't seem to,
Huh?
parents don't seem to go. Very good stories.